Hi, folks. Welcome back to Outro, the show about shows, the show that deals with shows, the show that is a show itself about shows. I, of course, am on the Writer Albert Lanier channel, and I am the Writer Albert Lanier, right here with, again, another episode of Outro. I recently had an interview come out on the podcast Parallax Views, which I've been on a number of times. If you've looked at episodes of Outro, you'll probably notice there are probably some episodes dealing with Parallax Views. I try to go on that show every year, at least once or twice a year. And I recently, I think as of yesterday, my interview came out yesterday on Parallax Views. And on my interview, I talked about my newsletter, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you follow this channel, the newsletter Final Cut, which of course is on Substack. If you haven't checked it out, check it out by going to allanier.substack.com. That's allanier.substack.com. Let's get that out of the way. Anyway, I talked about the 1 year anniversary, which was in June. Actually, this was recorded some time back, so it just came out yesterday, but I recorded I think nearly 2 months ago or so, something like that. And since then, as you probably are aware, if you watch this show or you follow this channel, I've been on a couple of shows on YouTube. Of course, Thursday's Things on the Netter Network. And of course, I think it's Reserved Seats. I think that's on the Deleted Scenes channel. Now, if you want to catch Parallax Views on YouTube, you can do that by going to the JG Michael channel. That's the JG Michael channel. Or you can take a look at, well, not take a look, but you can listen to it by going to Podbean. I believe that's where you can, one of the outlets where you can pick up Parallax Views. So either way that you want to listen to it, go to Podbean. Or if you want to watch it, go to the JG Michael channel on YouTube. That's JG Michael channel on YouTube if you want to check it out, if you want to watch. There's really nothing to watch. You'd still listen to it. But there's a nice picture of me, and you can go and check that out while you listen to me. That sounds weird to say that, but it's true. In any event, I was talking about quite a few things on the show. Thanks. Hello to the chat. Thanks. I guess thanks for the remark, if that's correct. Hello to those who are joining me on the chat. I don't really get to talk to people in the chat too much when I do these shows, but in any event, I was talking about a few films because some films came up. Anyone who follows me on Substack will know that I run and write a newsletter about movies on, well, actually two. I do a newsletter called Final Cut, which has its 1 year anniversary. It's had its 1 year anniversary this past June. And I also do the Retro Review newsletter, where I do reviews of forgotten films that don't get remembered as much, films from the past. But, generally not entirely obscure, but sometimes obscure films or little remembered films or just forgotten films. So I also run that newsletter. If you want to check out my review newsletter and subscribe to that, you can go to thumbsdown.substack.com. That's thumbsdown.substack.com. And you can check that out. So in any event, because I was there to promote my film newsletter, Final Cut, 1 year anniversary, we ended up talking about movies, of course. And there were about 2 or 3 movies that we ended up talking about. I don't really want to go into detail about our discussion. I want to leave you the viewer and listener to go and check out the podcast itself, and also the podcast on YouTube. So I want you to go and check it out yourself. He brought up Psycho. J.G. Michaels, the host, brought up Psycho 2. And that's a film and he was really happy that I had reviewed the movie in the, at the time, retro review section. For those who aren't aware, retro review used to be a section on my Final Cut newsletter. And then about a couple of months ago or a few months ago, I made the decision to turn it into its own newsletter. So now it's just Retro Review is its own newsletter, and I do reviews there. I just had a couple of reviews come out. You can check them out. One is a movie called Cinemania from 2002, which is about film fanatics, about 5 people that are full-time film viewers, watchers, fans of cinema who watch movies all day, every day. And I did a review of that. I had seen that movie in a film festival of all places back in, I think, 2001 or 2002. I think it was 2002. And I also did a review of the 1983 comedy Screwballs, which is one of my favorite raunchy comedies of that genre. And we did talk about raunchy comedies. So, like I said, if you want to check out those 2 reviews and other reviews, go to thumbsdown.substack.com. Speaking of raunchy comedy, we did talk a little about that I can recall on the show. So we talked a little about that. But we were talking about Psycho 2, which is directed by Richard Franklin. And in my view, Psycho 2 is every bit as good. And I've said this not only, I believe, in the review, I might have said this in the review. Hello to those in the chat. I might have said this in the review, but I said it when I did my podcast, Final Cut, where I did an episode on Psycho 2. But Psycho 2 is every bit as good as the original Psycho. Repeat. Psycho 2 is every bit as good as the original Psycho. So some people, maybe a lot of people won't agree with me on that, but I used to be a film reviewer, so I'm used to people not agreeing with me. So I was telling somebody that on Facebook the other day. So we talked about Psycho 2. We also discussed the big budget Canon Pictures space horror movie. Well, really on Earth, but sci-fi themed horror movie Force, which came out in 1985. By the way, Psycho 2 came out in 1983. Big summer of 1983. Summer where they're Return of the Jedi and Jaws 3, and I think Octopussy, the James Bond movie, and I think it was Superman. Was it Superman 3, I think? I think Superman 3 was that year. So we talked about Life Force to an extent. And again, I don't want to go into detail about that, which is why I'm avoiding discussing precisely what I stated about the movies. But we talked about Psycho 2. We talked about Life Force. We talked about another movie that I did a review on. I did reviews of Psycho 2 and Life Force, but I did a movie called Split Image. And Split Image is a movie that was done by Ted Kotcheff, I should say, Canadian filmmaker who had directed First Blood with Sylvester Stallone in the same year, 1982. It's a movie about a college gymnast who winds up in a cult, and his family's efforts to get him out of the cult, to hiring a cult deprogrammer played by James Woods, of all people. The gymnast is played by Michael O'Keefe. It's a good movie. It's a little wild and freaky at times, but interesting movie. Split Image from 1982. I believe it's on streaming. Check it out and read my review about it too when you get the chance. But we talked about that movie, and I'm trying to remember. I'll just leave it at that. So good discussion. Enjoyed being on Parallax Views. And if you want to check out Parallax Views and the episode that I'm on, I believe it's called The Final Cut. Go to Podbean, go look up Parallax Views. I think you can go to their website, but you can go check it out on Podbean. I believe it's on that. It's on that platform. That's a podcast platform. That's Podbean. If you want to check it out on YouTube, go to the JG Michael channel on YouTube. That's JG Michael. Check that channel out if you want to check it out on YouTube. Of course, the name of the show, Parallax View, and the name of this channel, writer Albert Lanier, and the name of the show, Outro. And this, of course, is my outro for Outro. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for being here, right here on Outro on the Writer Albert Lanier channel. Signing out.